Hi everyone, my name is Grace and welcome to this episode of Gracie, the Kenyan Diaspora and Returnee. For those of you who are listening to us for the first time, we're so glad that you've joined us. This podcast is a forum for discussing everything diaspora and life as a returnee. Today I'm joined by two dear friends, and this is actually also the first time that I have two guests on the show at the same time. We have Mukami.
Hi everyone.
And Cece.
Hi everyone.
Hey, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Mukami, you are so welcome. Today's discussion will be on the realities and shocks of employment and entrepreneurship as a returnee. So let's get right into it. I'll start with you, Cece. Cece, you are a former diaspora. You've returned back home. You actually returned many years ago. You'll tell us about that. And you've gone into employment and then switched into entrepreneurship. Tell us your story a little bit as a diaspora. Where were you? What did you study? Why did you come back home?
Thank you for having me. I haven't had to share this story in a while, so it's gonna take me back.
Okay.
So I actually went to Australia because I wanted to go to law school. So the US would have been a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Because always at the back of my mind and at the back of my parents' minds all those years ago, I guess a part of us knew I would come back. So the options were the UK, Australia, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I went in 2000, and it was for the most part a positive experience because Australia was still getting used to having international students such as Africans. So it was all very exciting and new and fun. I went to law school. I did a double degree.
Okay.
I did international relations and law, a bit of politics, Spanish, all that kind of thing. And I did enjoy my time in Australia. There's ups and downs as usual.
Yeah.
But some of the things that made me really grateful to have gone to Australia rather than, say, the United States is things like the pay. When you're working your part-time job, I worked at a high-end department store. I was a perfume girl.
Oh.
When I was 19, 20, 21, 22, I was a perfume girl at a high-end department store. But it was a good job. And the pay was also fair. The pay was very good.
Yeah.
And the Australian government was quite strict about how long an international student could work for the week. And employers, at least for me and my friends, employers were very cognizant of that.
Yeah.
So I studied, I worked part-time, but when I was doing my law degree, I realized I don't want to be a lawyer. And so as I approached the end of my degree, I started asking myself, okay, what do I want to do? So I got a job in corporate, in KPMG. Again, I did my best, but I just felt like this is not the best environment for me. I'm not thriving.
Yeah.
And now I look back and I think, the audacity of expecting to thrive.
Right.
You're in your mid-20s.
Yes.
And you're like, why am I not thriving? But thankfully, that made me realize, oh my gosh, I really need to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that hit me when I was in my 20s. That question hit me very early in my 20s. And so, long story short, I came to Kenya for about a year. I spent some time at an organization called Scanad. It's now WPP Scan Group, I believe.
Yeah.
Went back to Australia, got a job in media there. But this niggling feeling just wouldn't go away. Long story short, I did a complete 180 in my career. I knew I just wanted to make a difference, but more importantly, I wanted to feel useful at work. I wanted to feel like I was contributing because I have this brain. I knew I was smart. I wanted to contribute. So I left the corporate world and I joined the organic food industry, and it's a booming industry. This is back in the day in 2009. And when I got that job, managing a team in the organic food industry, I finally had the headspace to think about, okay, what am I going to do with my time outside of work? I wasn't married, I didn't have kids at the time. I was dating my husband at the time. He was my boyfriend. But I had headspace. And I chose then to get my coaching accreditation with the Life Coaching Institute of Australia. And I absolutely loved what I was studying. So in my previous jobs, when we were doing a training, I distinctly remember looking at the trainer and thinking, I want this person's job. I want this person's job. I was enjoying the conversations with my colleagues. I thought they were so meaningful. The information we were getting was so practical. So I remember that, sitting in trainings when I was an employee and thinking, I want this person's job. So when I finished my coaching course, I decided to jump ship and start working for myself. But I was there's a death and a rebirth that happened. My dad passed away, unfortunately. That was difficult. I had to fly back to and from Australia, Nairobi. And Dad left all of us with a little bit of something. And so I had a bit of a buffer. That's why I was able to jump ship and work for myself. But I knew, money goes fast. Money goes fast. I knew that, listen, it's not like I've been left with millions. So this coaching practice I start needs to work. And I gave myself an 18-month timeline or deadline, let's say. And I said, if I don't make something happen with this coaching business, I'm going to go back to employment.
Were you in Australia at the time, or you already moved back?
I was in Australia at the time.
Okay.
And fortunately, again, because I loved what I was doing and I was genuinely interested, I got feedback from clients. I started coaching people for free. Nothing wrong with free in the beginning. In the beginning. So I started coaching people for free, and then a few months in, I got feedback that, look, you're really good, you should start charging. So I started charging, built my confidence, etc., etc. And then my boyfriend and I got married. We got married here in Kenya, and something changed at that point. When we went back to Australia, it felt odd, like we were fish out of water.
Had he been here before? Because I know he's Australian.
Yes, so my husband's Australian, Stefan, and he had been before. So when I would come back home for holidays, I'd bring him along. He met my parents, my siblings. So that was good, and he liked it, thank goodness. He liked it. Because I've heard many stories. We've heard stories of couples breaking up because one person does not like the country they've moved to. So that all worked out with Stefan. But after the wedding, when we went back to Melbourne, we just felt a bit off. And we knew we wanted to, I knew I wanted to come back. And for Stefan, it was, I also want an adventure. I want to try working in a new market. I mean, Melbourne is the city he was born and raised in. So he wanted to try something new. And we came back, but boy, did we plan. We planned. Between the time we made the decision to move and when we actually landed, it was a year. We were planning, we were saving, we were talking to people here in Kenya, getting advice. I remember one of my father's really good friends, he had come to Melbourne for a conference. He's a doctor, and he said, I went overseas as well to study when I was young. We were 6 of us. We were given scholarships. I think he said that they were given scholarships. 3 of them came back to Kenya. 3 of them stayed in the US. And their lifestyles were completely different. And the ones who came back had a much richer lifestyle, because of simple but significant things like affordable childcare, wide open spaces, this kind of thing. And that was it for me. That was what made me realize, I do want to go back. And I also wanted to be around with my mom. She's getting older, all these sorts of reasons. But it took a year of planning and saving hard. And I have this joke I say to people: when you arrive at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, leave those things you know and love, and
expectations.
The expectations, leave those things at the airport,
Yes.
because this is a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Kenya is a different beast.
It is.
So just be humble.
Be humble.
I
Yes.
think a wise man called Kendrick Lamar said that.
And
Be
you know
humble.
what? This is even a good transition because we've hosted Mukami twice before, and Mukami shared her diaspora story and her returnee story, and I remember that's one of the things that we talked about.
Exactly.
Is what you hoped to accomplish. You had also planned before you came here. You had spent time in Canada.
Yes.
Planning to come, and then you got here, and how it went is so different. Do you want to maybe recap on that a little bit as we transition?
Definitely, yeah. I think I was told, somebody gave me the advice that I needed like 6 months worth of living expenses. And so I had to save money. I moved back in with my mom. I rented my apartment. I tried to get a job before I came here.
Yes.
Didn't work out.
Yes.
But I also,
Yes.
yeah, it was heartbreaking because I was going to come to Kenya without a job. But I really had to learn to humble myself, and because things just don't work the way you think they're going to. It doesn't matter. And I was going to ask you, with all the planning you did,
Right,
still according to plan.
That's a big question.
Well, okay, so for us, I mean, you're absolutely right about you're not gonna get a job just off a phone interview, and
Exactly.
and those are the sorts of differences between a city like Melbourne and a city like Nairobi. What helped Stefan and I was we hit the ground running immediately, and it was really interesting because people were telling us to chill. Just chill, you've arrived, take your time, settle in. But something in me was saying, don't chill. You need to get a job. You need to get a job. So we also moved in with my brother to save on costs. We were living with him for a few months, and I remember we arrived on a Friday, and on Monday, Stefan had an interview. You know what I mean?
Look at this one.
We hit the ground running.
Yes.
And so for me, what I did, because I wanted to continue working for myself, I started having interviews with people to get the lay of the land.
Yes.
Do people know what coaching is?
Yeah.
Is training in organizations valued? And I was very happily surprised when people said, actually, yes, we do training, we do coaching, So that was a timing thing as well, because I do believe if I had come even 5 or 10 years before we did, it might have been harder.
Yes.
By the time we moved back to Nairobi, the SME and startup scene was,
actually
burgeoning.
Yes.
And those are mostly my clients. So I would say the thing that made the difference was I hit the ground running.
Yes.
It was all very exciting to be back in Nairobi, but we pounded the pavement. We really did. So my husband went for multiple interviews. I was just chatting to many different people about many different things. One of the interesting differences between here and Australia, I'm not sure if it's the same in Canada and the US, but in Australia, information is readily available and accessible. So I met many, like Americans, for example, who came to Australia for a year and they plugged right in. You just jump online. The co-working spaces are sharing information about events they're having, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in Kenya, I was struggling to find out what's going on. What is going on? Until somebody told me, Cece, in Nairobi, we are on WhatsApp.
Right.
And WhatsApp is a closed platform. You have to be invited to a WhatsApp group.
Yes.
That was huge. And I say this to people, when you come to Nairobi, you've got to get into WhatsApp groups.
Yes.
Certainly for our generation, everything is happening on WhatsApp. Jobs are being advertised on WhatsApp. Juicy conversations about work, about life, about specific companies is all happening on WhatsApp.
Networking is so important. And we talked about that too. And speaking of planning and hitting the ground running, I remember for me too, the conversation of coming back home started with my US career coach.
Yeah.
And she had started the questions of, so are you ready? How much money do you need to save up? Have you saved up?
Yeah.
What are you scared of? And whatever it was that I'd say I was scared of, she'd say, what are you scared about? So you go deep into, is it just an artificial fear or is it real fear? And then we address it. And I remember when I came home for a month, I was off social media because I remember also my coach telling me, people will not understand your journey because it's not like you're struggling in the US. It's not like you don't have documents.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just choosing to go home.
You're choosing.
You're choosing to go home. And I remember I landed and I also told my family, I don't want any questions because I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
And if any of you ask me questions, I'll stop talking to you because it got to, mom will be so worried, like, why are you here? And she'll send the siblings to find out, why is she here? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
But Cece, I remember that a month later when I was now ready and I talked to my coach, Christy, I told her I'm going back on social media and she said that's okay. And I got on Facebook and an advertisement of your coach, your sessions at
The
Visit.
events.
The
events. The women's event, leadership and well-being.
And I remember that's how I got to meet you because it just came up and I was like, oh, they do that here. This is so cool. Let me go and check it out.
Yes.
So to your point of talking to people and hitting the ground running, that is how we met. So maybe you can even mention what that's about and what you do as an executive leadership and wellness coach.
Yeah, thank you. Again, you're taking me back. So I help leaders in organizations, both male and female, solve their personal and professional challenges. And I too receive coaching. That's what I say to people. So in Australia, as I mentioned, I got my coaching accreditation and that gave me confidence. But the reality is, for me, a lot of it has been creativity, instinct, and doing what I want to do, right? Rather than trying to copy and get programs from other coaches that I will then run, that kind of thing. And so running events is a deliberate strategy. One of my business coaches taught me that. Because when I get invited into an organization, that's a closed conversation. You can't just have random walk-ins. And so if I wanted to get the work I do out there, running events was great, and I loved it. I loved the networking. We've had both of you have
we've attended your events.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's also how you two met.
Yes, Mukami came for one of my events at Meta, the Entrepreneurs Club. And so it was also a great way to meet great people, both men and women. So that strategy has worked. The only reason I stopped running events is because of the pandemic, but as you both know, they're back. People are ready, willing, and able to meet again. And you know, I've talked to you about this, Grace, where it's a question of what are you focused on? What are you focused on? Because unfortunately there is that crowd that will tell you things are hard, things are horrible, why did you come back? And you just have to focus on people who are busy doing cool stuff that they like to do.
Finding your tribe.
Exactly. Finding your tribe. And so I love that I was able to help both men and women find their tribe through those events. And I just love it. I love that connection. Got lots of different clients through those events, both one-on-one clients and organizations. And again, Grace, I remember after the event that you came for, you came to talk to me. You came to talk to me, and I said, let's continue this conversation, and the rest is history. And
I was like that student who goes to talk to the teacher after class. When everyone else is leaving, I'm like, what's your number?
Exactly. And Mukami did the same thing. Mukami called me and said, I attended your event, and I'm like, let's do this. Let's meet up. And one of the reasons why I have, let me back up a bit and say it like this. There's no such thing as reality. There's no singular reality. We are all in different realities. We in this room, there's the reality in this room, but Mukami has her reality, you have yours, I have mine. the people in the rooms around us have their own realities. And so when you meet somebody who's struggling, it's not to say, come on, get over it. That's their reality.
It is.
But conversely, when you meet someone who's thriving, don't think like, no, this positive Pollyanna.
Right.
People are thriving
Yes.
here in Nairobi.
Yes, they are.
In Kenya.
Yes.
And I've met some of those people, and I've worked for some of those people, and
Yeah.
I've coached some of those people. So because I talk to many different people just in a week.
Yeah.
I talk to many different people in a week. I can say that you want to be mindful about what you're focusing on. And that also speaks to your friendship groups.
Right. Oh gosh,
Which
yes.
is such a key topic.
Yes.
If you want to come back and thrive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just have something to say about events and networking. I think the challenge and the mistake a lot of people do is when they come, you ask like your family group what's happening in Kenya, what's happening in Nairobi. And because you're right, everybody has their own reality. They might not know that events that we used to have at Meta or the ones that you hold, like they don't know that those things exist. Right? Because that's not part of their sphere.
Yeah.
So I would recommend to anybody who wants to come back and is really trying to plug in to just ask someone who's a returnee and say, can I actually see what WhatsApp groups you're in?
Yes.
Because sometimes people are like, I'm in a few WhatsApp groups, but I can tell you specifically, I'm in professional ones, networking ones, resource ones. And once you start seeing that, then you can ask, is there maybe surgeons WhatsApp group? Is there an engineers WhatsApp group? Is there some place I can get in to start meeting my tribe?
Yes.
Because a lot of times you'll just ask, somebody who's in like their church and primary school group.
Right.
And they don't know how to help you.
Primary school group.
And you really need to go. You need to go online. You need to, you need to kind of break out of those circles.
Yes.
Your old community.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because you've changed as a person.
Yes.
You've
Yes.
changed as a person.
Yes.
But let me just on that thing of WhatsApp groups, let me tell you how specific it can get. A client of mine, a former client, got a promotion. She became an executive director in a not-for-profit. There is a WhatsApp group for newly appointed EDs.
Oh.
Newly appointed
Yes.
women EDs.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Yes. Yeah.
A WhatsApp group specifically
For
for
them.
newly appointed women executive directors. And that's probably one of 7.
Exactly.
But you know also the importance of being intentional. And I know,
Yeah.
Cece, you'll talk about mindset, whether it's when you come back and you want to be employed or going into entrepreneurship. You really have to be intentional. What is your why? Which I remember, Mukami, you mentioned in the episode that we had together, is why are you coming home? And then how are you going to accomplish your why? Because if you don't have that set, and this is why Cece is also good, because she helps you figure it out. And she'll ask you questions that get you there, and she'll give you the tools to accomplish that. But really understanding your why and being intentional, choosing the right tribe, choosing the right WhatsApp groups is very important.
It's start with why. We all know that is so important. Why am I coming back? Why am I coming back? Am I coming back because my butt was kicked in the US?
Right.
Wherever you were. What is your why? But more importantly than why am I coming back is, okay, now I'm back, what am I going to do?
Exactly.
What am I going to do?
I've
heard so many stories of returnees coming back with big egos and realizing that their friends who stayed here are actually doing really well.
Yes.
So if you are somebody who is living overseas, yay, great for you, but just be knowing there's a lot of epic stuff happening in Kenya.
Yes,
exactly.
And so again, that speaks to the humility and being humble. For me, what was my why? My why was, as I said, I've always wanted to make a difference. I've always wanted to use my brain. I've always wanted to contribute. And so it was very exciting to me to be able to come back and contribute to the country that raised me. And one of my coaches said, Cece, you're returning to the mothership.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You left, just like in the movies.
Yeah.
You left, you gathered some knowledge, some wisdom,
Yes.
and now you're returning to
Yes.
the mothership.
Yes.
It's been called the hero's journey. The heroine's journey, ladies, is a bit different to the hero's journey, right? Because men and women are designed differently.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to call it, it's that journey where you've now, it's a part of the journey now where you're coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the tribe is like, okay, you're back, great. You know, some people are like, tell us everything. Others are like, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But the point is, you've got to get in where you fit in.
Yes. Yes.
And you've got to start making a contribution.
Yes.
You've got to start making a contribution. And I remember saying to my husband, my husband is first generation Australian. His grandparents on the dad's side are Iraqi, so he has that humility because he was, partly raised by immigrants, So he has that humility. So even he was just very conscious not to come in with ego and thinking that people will be impressed because you're a tall white looking dude or whatever. It's just humility. And so I remember just wanting information really badly because I wanted to get the lay of the land.
Yes.
It was very straightforward for Stefan. Stefan's an architect, so he's looking for architecture gigs. For me, I needed to know, where are women leaders at? Where are men leaders at? What's it like working here? What should I watch out for? What is going on basically? And thankfully, or perhaps it's also alignment and focus, the people I spoke to were all very positive. They were also thriving in their own way. And they were just like, Cece, just do it. Just do it. How did I get my very first corporate gig as a client? It happened in the most unusual way. I had a meeting with a lady in HR, and we ended up not talking about business at all. It was just, I love those meetings.
Yes.
We didn't talk about business at all. We talked about life. We talked about life. Next thing I know, I get a call from the head of HR in a corporate, and she's like, hey, so-and-so told me about you. We're looking for a coach or trainer to help us with 1, 2, 3. And I remember jumping. We're going to do it in Naivasha.
Ooh, yes.
I remember jumping up and down, being so happy, being so excited. And I was like, yeah, this is real. This is going to work. But I pounded the pavement.
Yes.
I pounded the pavement.
Yes.
Did you get a lot of rejections? Or do you...
Well, see, this is the thing, right? So, again, with running events, I knew, thanks to my business coaches, I knew that there was going to be a lot of interest. So the event has, 60 people. 30 will be interested. Out of those 30, perhaps only 10 or even less will commit.
Yes.
So my mind was already aware of that. And that is why I'm such a warrior for receiving coaching.
Yes.
Because my business coaches helped me avoid a lot of pitfalls.
Right.
And so when we were doing sales, for example, sales calls and sales conversations, my sales coach a few years before that had said, do you know how many calls you have to make before you get a yes? Do you know how many calls you have to make before you get a yes? So I'm such a fan of coaching because two things. Number one, you get an opportunity to focus on you for an hour. Not even your best friend will allow that. Like after about 20 minutes, your friend will be like, let's talk about me now. You get to focus on yourself for an hour and a bit, and you're thinking of strategy. So it's slightly different to a traditional therapy session. We are thinking about, okay, can you do this? Can you try that? Who do you need to call? And that leaves you feeling empowered. You have some idea about the actions to take. But the third thing that your coach will really help you with is helping you avoid the pitfalls. So my sales coach, for example, taught me how to manage my expectations.
Which I think is so important when people come back here. You know,
Yes.
sometimes people have come back here and they've left everything behind and they're fearful. So they're like, it's got to work.
It has to work.
So every interview is like, if this one I left my whole life, this one has to work. And the reality is that even with just looking for a job, you might interview 10 times and only get one offer, you know?
Yeah,
But
it's true.
then the minute it doesn't work, you're like, this country scammed me.
Yes.
They lied to me. And it's like, no, it's just
It's true. And
it's
Cece,
called life.
that's what I like about even going through coaching. So after I decided that I'd stay here and I attended your event, Return to the Feminine, and then I signed up for coaching. It was, you really walked me through that. And earlier we said about knowing your why. I actually didn't know my why initially, if you remember. I also didn't know if I wanted to be a consultant or employed.
You have these skills, you're like, I'm not really sure what to do with them. How do I focus and channel them into something I will enjoy? Because after a certain age, it's not about just getting any job.
No, it's not. And so I like that you do as a coach, you help us get clarity and then knowing the pitfalls. And for me, because you are a returnee, it was also very good for you to be able to walk me through it because you had experienced it.
Remember, I even told you guys things like, don't get excited about an interview.
I know.
Get excited when you've signed a contract offering you a job.
And still on mindset and then transitioning into pay, there's also the conversation of, you've been abroad, you calculate what you are earning in Australia dollar, Canadian dollar, US dollar, and then you start being given the offer, and you're like, do these people understand I like traveling and I do international travel and I want to stay in this place? So Cece, tell us about that too, and advice you'd even give her to me.
I mean, I hope this interview won't be boring because I'm going to sound like a broken record. Again, my coach helped me manage my expectations. I remember one of my coaches, I've always done group sessions. So I'll pay for a high-end program and I'll be one of, say, 20 or 30 people in the program. And I remember one coach telling us, Actually, here's the thing. One coach in Australia, his name is Ben. I remember Ben saying, he ran us through this exercise where he said, just calculate how much money you've spent on acquiring knowledge. And I don't mean courses you did when you were older. I'm talking about from primary school, what your folks spent, how many books have you read? And people are furiously writing and you're there writing and you're like, and I paid this and I paid that. And anybody who does that exercise, especially as a diaspora, you will not have less than tens of thousands of dollars. If you add everything up, every book, every course, every, And then he told us, what about the man hours? And people are like, hey, okay. And he was quiet, like, do the exercise. So by the time you've spent tens of thousands of dollars over decades, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, for MBAs and all the rest of that. And then at the end of that exercise, he's like, and do you want to offer a discount?
Yes.
And everyone went,
yes.
No, I have to. Of course, it's an exercise on valuing how much you've done to get really good at what you offer. So that was one example. Another example was another coach called Russell. And Russell said to us two things. He said, think of your best client. Think of your best client and the things, the thank yous. Or your boss, your favorite boss, the thank yous, the well dones, and everybody's there and we're thinking, and of course people are now smiling and whatever. And he was like, that would not have happened if you hadn't made the sale. You haven't changed anything unless you've made the sale. If I'm looking for a great pair of shoes for my wedding and I go to a shop and the salesperson is not doing a great job and I walk away, you actually haven't helped me. I'm looking for a pair of shoes for my wedding. So I was, again, my expectations were managed by my coaches. And I remember Russell saying, why do you want to start asking what other coaches are charging, what other consultants are charging, because number one, you don't know whether that consultant knows as much as you. You don't know what their expenses are. You don't know what's going on in that office of theirs. Charge what you believe is fair.
Yes.
Charge what you believe is fair. And that's what I've always done.
Yeah.
And I've also encouraged my clients who come to me when they want me to help them set up their business. Charge what you believe is fair.
But did you find pushback?
Yeah, of course, of course there was pushback. It was like, wait, what? First of all, Cece's not meeting you face to face, because I was doing remote. You guys were the early crop when I was still doing face to face. But even before the pandemic, I started doing remote coaching. So they're like, wait, you're charging what? And we're not meeting face to face. What is this?
Yes.
But you see, this is where preparation comes in.
Yes.
I have to explain why we're not meeting face to face. And I remember saying to a client who lived in the suburb of Karen, and I was living in Westlands, it's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour to come to Westlands. You're going to have your 1 hour session, and then it's going to take you an hour plus to get back to Karen. So for a 1 hour session, you've spent 3 hours.
Exactly.
And of course, the executive goes, oh, yeah, no, let's... And it's very easy to then say, you will do what you're doing from 8 to 8:50. You grab a tea, grab a coffee, sit down for your session at 9. And at 10:05, you will get right back to doing what you wanted to do. So you have to have good answers for the questions people ask you. And that's why I'm also not very easy to scam, because I ask hard questions. And if you don't have answers, I just go, well... And there are lots of scammers.
There are lots of scammers. We've been talking about that.
We are so creative here in Kenya for the right reasons and the wrong reasons. But of course there's pushback. But that's part of the... Do you know how many calls you have to make before you get a yes?
That is just about managing your expectations.
Exactly.
And still on pay, when it comes to, a diaspora who was employed and here they're coming to get employed, we often compare that pay, but then we also say, I know more. And then you come here and you realize there are people who stayed here. They also got master's degrees. And they have the local experience that the employer is looking for. So they are at director level, and you're already thinking, I should be CEO of this company because I worked abroad.
I lived in Atlanta.
No. So there's that we have to adjust to as returnees.
But it also comes back to your why. Because if you're coming back purely for the money, stay out there. Stay out there. Stay out there. Earn your dollars, earn your Great British pounds, and all the rest of them. And that's not to say that people here aren't earning a lot of money. I remember once an HR person called me to do a mini workshop, and I gave her my fee, and she's like, "Hi, Cece," and I laughed and I told her, but I've just seen your boss's name in Business Daily as one of the top earning CEOs. And she was like, wow, okay.
But you really do need to know your work.
But those are few, man. That's an ivory tower with very few people in it. So it comes back to your why. Why do you want to come back? Why do you want to come back? But to be honest, it's about what's fair. Even if you're employed, an employed leader, you've got to think about what's fair, because if you push too hard, you're going to lose the opportunity.
You will.
But at the same time, if you're like, okay, I'll take the job, but the pay is not great, that's not the right energy to start a job with. So it's about alignment, basically. And I know that's a bit of a woo-woo hippie word. But if you can sign on the dotted line of a contract and you feel good and the other party feels good, we are aligned.
Then we are.
Let's go for it.
One thing I have to say though about this market is that there isn't a lot of salary transparency. So it's also very hard to know how much a role or position charges. And to be honest, also some HR people play a game of like, let's see if you know.
Let's see if you know. So what are your salary expectations?
And you will never say like, oh, the this role, this is the benchmark. They're like, what
What are you talking about?
What will you take?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I hope we're moving as a country away from that, but it becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you've been able to navigate it, but
Yeah.
it's something I find that is, it can be very frustrating.
Yes.
Because you can't just, I mean, you can try to go on Glassdoor, but you're not really going to find
You're not gonna
it.
find. And by the way, it's funny you bring.
here.
Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
you bring that up because when I was also researching on pay, I talked to people who are in banking, in senior management positions and up, and no one gave me like a range. You know, in the States, I remember
even the range.
I would get different, like the numbers were so big, they were so far apart. And I remember in the States, when you're even applying for a job, it gives you the range.
Yes,
You know what the range is? Here,
it gives you the range.
Here, one person will tell me
JD
200.
gives you the range.
Literally. And here, remember, one person will say, just arbitrary numbers, 200,000 shillings a month. Another one is telling you 400. Another one, oh, you already did it. And you're like, wait, so what? How can the range? So I do remember that I didn't get a number that I could say this is a decent range.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a matter of just also playing that card.
Yeah. You need friends in HR.
Friends
who will tell you.
Actual
friends.
friends in HR.
Just on that note, I mean, I noticed that even about rent. I'm like, okay, this person is charging 120,000.
Oh yes.
But this other person is charging for also a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. They're charging 80,000. So that lack of consistency.
There's no consistency.
Yeah, that lack of consistency means you have to be clever.
You do.
You have to be
you
clever.
do.
You have to do your research. You have to be clever. But you're right. It's the information is not there for you to access easily.
It's not.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who places a very high value on order, and but the salary, the range should be put in the JD, and I want to know what is.
Yes.
Stay out there, darling.
Please.
Stay out there, darling.
Yes.
We've managed to make it work. See, that's the thing. It's a beautiful chaos here in a city like Nairobi. We've managed to make it work, but being rigid,
it wouldn't work.
No. You're going to have a very hard time here if you're rigid.
Yeah. And honestly, it just goes back to what we keep saying is have the network that will help you and be honest. I think we are blessed to be each other's friends and reach out and be honest about these things. So when one of us is even trying or thinking of tripping, the other one is like, where?
Stop.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. So Mukami, in prior episodes, we talked about for you went to Canada when you were young. You were 9. You came back much older.
Yeah.
And it was a different thing for you. For Cece and I, we went when we were older. So adjusting back probably wasn't as hard.
Yeah.
Tell us about corporate culture, how you experienced it, corporate culture and politics in Kenya compared to what you were accustomed to in Canada.
I don't know if you have enough time.
And now Cece came into play with coaching too. So yes,
I think for me, what's been there, I've been very lucky in that my first role was in the startup e-commerce industry.
Yeah.
Because I would have never survived as a banker. Like what you do, where you work, it would have never happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know myself, my personality is very much aligned to the startup world. So I'm very lucky that was my first introduction to working in Kenya. However, even with that, there are challenges. I came back as I'm ambitious, I'm direct, which is something we get from, living abroad. I'm assertive. I don't back down. And I would see bosses just berate people and talk to them so badly, and they would just take it. And I was like, what is happening?
Including the dudes.
Including
men. This is we're 3 women, but we're talking about men and women here.
And for me, I was like, I didn't leave that whole life and all those comforts to come here and experience racism or just abuse,
being patronized, straight up abuse,
and all of these things. I just have a feeling like I can't live with that. But it is challenging. You have to kind of learn how to, for me, where I found it harder was managing people, because I was used to a management style that was very democratic.
Yes.
And that is, I'm very much a coaching type of leader myself.
Yeah.
And people really expect, like hard. The school system here kind of trains people to just expect someone to give orders, and I tell you what to do, and you do your job, and if you don't do it, I yell at you, and I don't want to lead like that. So it's definitely challenging.
It is. And some of the differences I've experienced too is, what you're talking about. You have to be aware of, there's also hierarchy.
Yes.
In Kenya. It starts with how we were raised and how our parents were raised. So if there's someone who's older than you, understanding that they're older than you. If they're of a higher rank than you, understanding that. And trying to fit in. But it can be a challenge for us, because if you've lived in the Western world, we learn how to be assertive. Literally, even in a conference room or a boardroom with other colleagues, you're speaking out. You're speaking up.
It's held against you if you don't.
Speak up. Exactly. So you challenge the ideas that come, and then you come here and you're having to remember, wait, I'm at home. How do we do this? And speaking of even staff, I lead a team, and I remember in the beginning, I'd ask questions and you find they're all quiet. So I started going round tables. So Mukami, anything from you? Cece, anything? And I will just not go per rank or age or anything. I just randomly choose names, just so that they can learn how to contribute. So it's just the differences in, our culture, values. That's actually
values. A lot of Kenyans value tradition. And so, like, for me, because I stepped, I showed up with unconventionality. I don't know if that's a word. I showed up, and one of my things was I am unconventional. What I teach you will be unconventional. And I'm sure a lot of people just went, what? No, that's too much. That's too much. But again, it's about, again, one of my former coaches used to say, play a bigger game. Play a bigger game. Did you come here to be liked? Did you come here to make friends? Or did you come here to make a difference? I've had to work very, very hard my whole life to drop this, but I want to be liked. I just want to be liked. It's something I've had to work on for a very long time. But I'm in a I'm in a different situation, because no one's going to hire a coach to tell them stuff that they can easily find on the internet. So being unconventional helps me in that way. And that's the other thing. I love what you said about your personality, Mukami. It's about knowing who you are and where it's going to work and where it's not going to work. Because you can find yourself in... See, here's the thing. Let's talk now about belonging, right? Everybody wants to feel like they belong. But if you are in a squad, a community, a group, whatever, that is just very different, you will never belong. So when it comes to getting in where you'll fit in, it matters in your personal life, it matters in your marriage, it matters in your work life as well. And so for me, like when I'm helping clients, leaders get jobs, if they want to change jobs, get more pay, get, whatever, it first starts with what do you want? Where are you good at? Where do you belong? I send people to interviews and I say, you've got to ask questions about the culture, and the working style and leadership style of your potentially future boss. Because it will be an uphill battle. If your boss values tradition, and you value modernity and being unconventional, it doesn't matter whether the two of you are decent, good people. You're gonna clash.
You will.
And I like what you're saying there about tradition, because one of the things when I was a leader in one of my previous roles, I remember one of my teammates, one of my staff, she said, we look at you like you're our mother. And I was offended. I'm like, I am nobody's mother.
Right.
But in the African context, the woman who has like the highest leadership position is a mother figure.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't bring me your issues.
Right.
Are you performing
or
our
not?
children?
I
So
want
it's that
but
misunderstanding.
it's for them, they think that they are, for them, the mindset, they're like, when women are in leadership, she's my mother, so I'll defer to her, and she will also take care of me. And I'm like, I am your boss.
Yes. We're not getting that close.
It's true. People really here kind of value tradition, and so sometimes they even think that they're being respectful in ways that don't feel respectful when you've lived abroad. You know, they might not be saying anything in the meeting because you're the boss.
Right,
So they're letting you be the boss, and you're like, no, guys, we're trying to solve a problem.
Right. I need all brains on deck.
I need all brains on deck.
Yeah.
I need all brains on
It's
deck.
such these small cultural differences where they don't
Yeah.
necessarily, sometimes they don't know where to place single women or
Yeah.
assertive women or women
Yeah.
being their boss. I've had men who've refused to look me in the eye, who
Oh.
won't, who can't. I've had meetings where people tell me I'm not being respected as a man, and I'm like, we are at the workplace.
Right.
I'm sorry,
We're not in
we
house.
were talking about the platform.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yes. You forget, and
You
for
forget,
me, that was a
yeah.
cultural change. This is a very kind of, there's still these traditional expectations sometimes people have.
Yes.
And they're just so bizarre. Like, what does your gender have to do with hitting the performance?
Right. We're not at home. This is not a husband-wife situation.
But let me tell you something really, well, it's either funny or weird, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
The number of women who've told me, Cece, when I quit my job, the way my male boss acted, like I was his wife divorcing him. Like it was there's like an extra resentment and anger and confusion. And you're just like,
Because how dare you choose yourself?
Right.
We're here together forever.
So it's that there are different values. It's very interesting though, because I have on the flip side, right? So you've left the mothership, you've gotten all these gems hopefully, and if you want to come back, you're bringing those gems back with you. That doesn't mean though that the people who have stayed here have not acquired gems of their own.
Yes.
And I have also heard stories of the reverse, where an employer has given a diaspora an opportunity, a shot, and the diaspora just couldn't cut it. They were being overtaken by their juniors who have lived and worked here. So that's that inflated ego. I remember one client telling me he hired somebody from Harvard and he was so disappointed. The attitude was all wrong, and the entitlement and the other kids in the office who are working and living in Kenya are just they're just moving, and they're moving fast. I've had multiple, especially the expats, expats telling me, we like hiring locals because it's not about you studied overseas or you stayed here. It's about your attitude. It's about your attitude.
And that's the thing too. They there are pros and cons to having gone abroad, studied abroad, worked abroad.
It doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't work for everyone. And one of
reality.
the things that I recognize even with my stuff is there's I don't know if the words are street smart, but there's a way they just know things on the ground that my mind doesn't even think about.
They have that edge.
Yes.
They have that edge.
Yes. So there's an advantage to having been here.
Yes.
So if our attitude is wrong and then we don't have this edginess, then yes.
What are you bringing to the table?
What are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
And on that, Cece, what do you advise your clients when it comes to, or returnees when it comes to career advancement opportunities? So they studied abroad, they have the Harvard degrees, they have work experience abroad, and they come here and maybe initially they just get the job that will get them in the system, but now they want to move up.
Yeah, well, it's the same advice you give to anybody, which is you've got to always think about what value you're adding. What value are you bringing to the table? I remember being asked in a workshop about, have I struggled as a woman, as a Black woman? And my mom saved me from that because I remember distinctly having a conversation with my mom when I was a teenager and asking her, because my mom, when I was growing up, my mom was a CEO, she was working in government. And I remember, all those books you're reading from overseas and all of this. And I started asking my mom questions about, being a woman and being a Black woman and all this. And she's like, yeah, there's some challenges, but at the end of the day, you basically what she said was, at the end of the day, you have to just bring it, and your excellence will trump all those other things.
Yeah.
Now that's not always the case. We know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my mom saved me from falling into that hole and now becoming maybe a bit too paranoid about that sort of stuff. So you have to constantly think about what value you're bringing. And that applies whether you're employed or whether you're self-employed. So I don't walk around telling people, I'm a coach, and Google has come to me as a client, and Pernod Ricard, and Momentum Credit, and that. People don't care. People don't care.
Yeah.
What people care about is, can you, Mukami, solve my problem?
Yes.
Grace, can you solve my problem?
Yes.
Okay, Chris, we're here at the networking event. You've talked a lot about your business. Can you solve my problem?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've got to think about the value you're bringing. And by that, I mean, how are you changing the customer's life? How are you changing the client's life? How are you changing your boss's life?
Right.
Exactly.
Are you making life easier for your boss?
Yeah.
So it's things like when I run trainings, I say to people, are you aware of what is topmost in your boss's mind? Because you can spend a whole Wednesday doing stuff that your boss thinks is kind of important, but have you checked what is important?
And sometimes what is important in their minds is not what's important to you.
Yeah.
Because you might
Yes.
think that maybe the numbers or hitting the performance target is important to you, but maybe your boss looking good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's important to them.
Exactly.
Right.
And we
Exactly.
sometimes struggle because we've come back and we're like, I want to show you I can do the best and I have all these ideas, but also this is a different market and things happen differently.
Exactly.
Exactly. So sometimes the priorities aren't what you actually think they are.
Yeah.
And some people struggle to let go of that.
That is
Yes,
true.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You which is why conversation is so important. Asking questions is so important.
Yeah.
For me, the hack when you're employed at whatever level, the hack is just, are you making your boss's life easier? In whatever way, are you making your boss's life easier? So I remember when I was employed, I used to say things to my former boss like, what can I take off your plate? What can I take off your plate? What can I'm free, what can I take off your plate? And the world has changed now. You don't have to stay in a job for very many years. In fact, I have a former client who stayed a bit too long in a job, and it took her a while to get the awesome job she has now. But people were asking, you've been at such and such for so long, and I'm like, you know what? You need to let them know that even though you're at such and such place for so long, your role was very entrepreneurial. You weren't just kind of coasting along.
Right.
You've got to highlight that. Let's highlight that in the CV. Let's highlight that in the interviews, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's okay to move from place to place as long as you're moving up.
Right.
Like this,
true.
like
Right.
this.
Yeah.
I've also had clients who are in recruitment, and recruiters are on LinkedIn now. Yeah, and they're using LinkedIn Premium to coach you, to contact you.
Yeah.
So make sure your LinkedIn profile is looking sharp
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
And so it's career advancement is, but really, doesn't it just come back to what's my why?
Yeah. Really does.
I've had clients leave jobs, great jobs, and family members are always like, but you're being paid well. I don't understand. And this whole idea, Maslow's hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but as soon as they hear you're earning more money, they're like, okay, now we understand.
Yeah. Right.
But career advancement is about, how am I adding value? How am I making my boss's life easier?
Yeah.
How am I growing? I'm loath to use the word your personal brand, but you really do have a brand. Whether you're actively working on it or not.
Yeah.
How people perceive you is your brand. And so you want to be intentional about your brand. Or another way of looking at it is, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be known for? So thinking about that throughout your entire career is going to help you. It's going to come in handy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to starting a business, I have so much to say about that. So let me just keep quiet and let the conversation proceed before I get back into that, because I mean, Mukami, people are so deluded.
Yes.
I want to be an entrepreneur, the flexible hours, this,
It's
that.
not gonna work out.
You are going to be slapped so hard by life when you start your own business, and you better be ready for that.
Yeah.
And with that, let's come back to part 2 of this discussion.
Yes.
Thank you for listening, and have a great day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.